பேசாதீங்க, கண்டிப்பா அதை பத்தி பேசிதான் ஆகணும். பத்தி பேசுவாங்க. அதை விட ரொம்ப ரொம்ப முக்கியம் இப்ப இருக்கக்கூடிய இந்த பாசிச பாஜக அரசை நம்ம உழைக்கணும். அதை கான்சென்ட்ரேட் பண்ணணும்.
A Madras High Court lawyer has moved the Supreme Court seeking a directive restraining DMK leaders from making hate speech. The petitioner has demanded an investigation into the meet that debated eradication of Sanatan, where Udhayanidhi made the comment. With elections in 3 Hindi heartland states later this year, DMK's attacks on Sanatan Dharma have put the Congress in a spot. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, let's raise the big questions on our talking point. Does the Sanatan debate bring religion squarely into politics? Will the BJP seek to make Sanatan Dharma a poll issue in 2024? Will the DMK's Sanatan stand haunt the opposition India allies? Does the issue resonate among common people really? These are some of the questions we'll pose. Sanju Verma, BJP national spokesperson with us. Sanjay Jha, he is of course a former Congress spokesperson based in Mumbai. Sumant Raman, political analyst based in Chennai. 2 special guests, Dr. Suraj Yengde, Harvard-Oxford scholar, studies Dalit Bahujan politics and society closely, and Dr. Ramu Manivanan is visiting professor at the International Studies School, University of Denver, former professor of head of political science, University of Madras. Let's get Dr. Manivanan first, because Dr. Manivanan, this debate has really started, triggered off by Udhayanidhi Stalin's debates, which are now being picked up by the Prime Minister, by others. His comments on Sanatan Dharma have been seen by the BJP and many others as offensive, to link a religion to dengue, malaria. How do you see it? Do you believe this is Dravida identity politics speaking out, or do you believe Udhayanidhi Stalin went a step too far?
I don't think that, this Udhayanidhi Stalin has went a step further, or this debate has been there in India for a very, very long time. And for instance, that what he had said, it has to be taken in the context. It has to be taken in the context of the social justice politics that has been deliberated in a state like Tamil Nadu and the southern parts of the country for a very, very long time. And the reference, the metaphor may have been misplaced, but the point is very, very clear. The eradication of the caste system, the caste oppression, that is the very, very objective point of this whole debate. And in a way that how this has been turned into a kind of the references to genocidal violence and eradication of the Hindus. And these are all the twists and turns and interpretations with a political motivation. But why don't we place this debate in a perspective like Sanatana Dharma was a social justice? Let's remove this dengue and the disease point. If people feel offended by references to the dengue and the references to the mosquitoes and the fever, but imagine the conditions of people, the oppressed people, for over centuries and centuries, and what has been the condition of these people.
So you're saying he was trying to focus on the social justice movement, but the metaphors used were clearly very, very deeply unfortunate and regrettable, Sumant Raman. Do you believe Udhayanidhi Stalin and then A. Raja simply went out of control? A. Raja likening Sanatan Dharma to AIDS. Do you believe these are deliberate and therefore, or do you believe it is, as is being suggested by the professor, part of a continuum? This is how Dravida politics has expressed itself.
Rajdeep, first of all, we have to understand that Udhayanidhi did not say anything that has not been said by his seniors in the DMK and his predecessors from the parent party, the DK and so on, all for the last 55 to 60 years. The Dravidian movement is essentially a movement of wealthy, landed, so-called intermediate communities, removing the oppression, oppression as it were portrayed of the Brahmins, and replacing it with their own oppression of the Dalits by the intermediate caste. So this whole Dravidian movement is as much a movement based on a hateful ideology and with the garb and the cover of social justice which is put there. So it's very similar in many ways to Hindutva. In fact, I have multiple times said they are 2 sides of the same coin, except that their targets of hate are different. Now, the point is, Mr. Udhayanidhi Stalin did not say, I want to eradicate caste. He said we must eradicate Sanatana Dharma. That is where the problem comes in, because the perception of the term Sanatana Dharma is quite different in Tamil Nadu as propagated by the DMK, and different in rest of the country. And even within Tamil Nadu, there are people who don't accept that Sanatana Dharma is actually the caste system. But there is a very big debate which happens on that. Now, my point is, why after this was called out, the BJP knows the DMK has been saying the same thing for decades. They never made a big issue of this earlier. Suddenly, before the election time, this becomes a national issue. Everybody from the Prime Minister, Defense Minister, Finance Minister, Home Minister, everybody talks about it, and it becomes an election campaign issue. The loser in this is not the DMK. The DMK is not saying anything new, and they know that it will not create even a minor dent in their vote bank. It may consolidate their vote bank. It will also appeal more to they believe that it may appeal to the minorities as well, who are solidly behind them. The loser will be the Congress, and not in Tamil Nadu, but in the Hindi belt. And the fact that the DMK has continued to double down on the same thing, even after it was pointed out, to me, I don't think it's an accident. There is some plan behind this whole thing, and I'm sure that in the weeks or months ahead, we will come to know why they are doubling down on it, in spite of knowing that it is going to embarrass the Congress, it is going to embarrass the Shiv Sena, it is going to embarrass JDU, it is going to embarrass so many other members of the alliance.
Okay, Sanju Verma, embarrassing or not, the BJP has gone on the front foot on it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday saying the opposition is plotting to finish Sanatan Dharma. Is the BJP now going to use what Udhayanidhi Stalin said to, suggest Hindu khatre mein hai, project the opposition as anti-Hindu? Is that a bit of a stretch to suggest, based on Udhayanidhi Stalin's statement, which, as both my guests have said, is part of the Dravida ideology? This is statements they've been making for the longest time. They'll say this goes back to Periyar, this staunch attack on what is seen as Brahminical Hinduism.
Okay, now let me just make a couple of points very clear. Suppose I do not like Rajdeep Sardesai's style of journalism. Should I say I want Rajdeep Sardesai's head on the platter? Suppose Rajdeep Sardesai does not like the fact that Sanju Verma is a huge Andha and a Modi Bhakt. Should he say that I want to cancel out Sanju Verma and I don't want her on my shows, chop off her head? The limited point I'm making is, suppose you don't like a certain aspect of a certain religion. Are you going to say do away with and eradicate, annihilate the entire religion? Udhayanidhi Stalin and A. Raja did not say eradicate the caste system within Hinduism. They said eradicate Sanatan Dharma. So there is a difference. Let's not try to be cleverer by half. There is a difference between saying eradicate Sanatan Dharma and eradicate
Sumant Raman ma'am is saying that Sanatan Dharma has a very different context and connotation in Tamil Nadu than it has in the rest of the country.
Can I finish? Did you interrupt any of your other panelists?
Please do. Why
do you have this bad habit? Or should I keep quiet? You can go ahead. I will not talk because you don't give the BJP. Please do not interrupt me, Rajdeep Sardesai.
Okay, go ahead, ma'am. I'm not
Thank
going
you.
Yes. Friday night, I'm in a very leisurely mood. Go ahead. Go ahead, ma'am.
Once you're done with your, jocular Friday night churlish behavior, I will come in. Because, I noticed that you have nothing of importance to say when the others are
Ma'am,
talking,
I'm asking you, ma'am, let's not do this again. Let's not make it personal. I ask you again. Do you believe that Sanatan Dharma, as used by Udhayanidhi Stalin, is in a way, according to those in the Dravida movement, very different from the way Sanatan Dharma is perceived in North India?
I just want to ask you one thing. Why should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from Udhayanidhi Stalin, who is a crypto-Christian? Why should I, as a practicing Hindu, take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from A. Raja, who's a baptized Christian and who still has the audacity to contest the last 3 consecutive Lok Sabha seats from the Nilgiris, which is a seat reserved for scheduled caste and Dalits? As a practicing Hindu, why should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from another crypto-Christian, T.R. Balu, who's a DMK leader and who, a couple of years back had said that all Hindus and practicing Hindus are equal to terrorists? Should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from people who say that we don't like the caste system within Hinduism, but this is the same lot which has never which has never spoken against halala within Islam, which has never spoken about the fact that when the rest of the world, including major Islamic nations, are saying that hijab is a regressive piece of clothing, this is the same lot which under the garb of choice says hijab is progressive. Should I take lessons from Sanatan Dharma, from people like Priyanka Khadge, whose father, Mallikarjun Kharge, who happens to be the Congress president, said on the eve of 2019 elections, इस बार मोदी को हराना है, नहीं तो यदि नरेंद्र मोदी दोबारा सत्ता में आए तो हिंदू राष्ट्र बन जाएगा. Who brought religion into politics? It is Mallikarjun Kharge. Should I take lessons from Sanatan Dharma, from the likes of Shashi Tharoor, who said that getting Narendra Modi back to power in 2019 means the resurgence of Hindu Taliban? Should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from Rahul Gandhi, who calls himself a Dattatreya called Brahmin, but in the same breath says that ये हिंदुत्ववादी वाले सारे आतंकवादी होते हैं? Should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from the likes of Priyanka Vadra, who I don't know if she's a baptized Christian, a crypto Christian, or a practicing Hindu? Should I take lessons, last but not the least, should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from MK Stalin, who believes in missionary mafia, who believes in the people with white robes who are willing to convert you for a bag of rice, but feels that Hindu religion is regressive? कहाँ से आते हैं ये लोग?
Okay.
Should I believe? Should
Ma'am,
I believe in this?
I have allowed you to continue uninterrupted because you wanted to be heard. I've listened to you. Sanjay Jha, respond, because the fact is, as Sanju Verma is rattling these details, it appears that the BJP is intent on bringing the issue of Sanatan Dharma squarely into the national mainstream and painting the opposition, as I said, as in some way anti-Hindu. To that extent, do you believe that Udhayanidhi Stalin has made remarks that were entirely avoidable?
Rajdeep, I think the attempt by the BJP to conflate the statement of Mr. Stalin in the context of Tamil Nadu's politics, his ideologies, social movements, is a deliberate political gambit, basically trying to use Sanatan Dharma as a potent weapon to once again polarize India at a pan-India level. Here is the truth. The hard truth is that the BJP's hypocrisy on Dr. Ambedkar today stands exposed. And let me explain that to you. Everyone who's aware of Tamil Nadu's history will be aware of the role of Periyar Ramaswamy. But the most, I would say, potent influence thereafter was Dr. Ambedkar himself. And the BJP today has to actually own up and say that have they not read Annihilation of Caste by Dr. Ambedkar? Dr. Ambedkar, by the way, everybody knows that in 1956 converted from Hinduism to a Buddhist. Why? I mean, if you read even the synopsis of his book, it is about the evils of the caste system. Now, the bottom line here is this, Rajdeep, that the BJP's true colors, are getting completely exposed in the political mainstream. How the India Alliance actually gets a message out politically, that is going to be, in my opinion, a communication.
No, but how do they do it? No, but you see, the BJP is painting, as I said, the India Alliance in some form using Udhayanidhi Stalin's comments to trigger off a debate on Sanatan Dharma. How does the opposition, the fine distinctions, the academic distinctions that can be made between how Sanatan Dharma is perceived in Tamil Nadu and the rest of the country, that's not going to work as a communication strategy.
Well, Rajdeep, let me tell you how straightforward it is actually. Number one, the BJP is trying to give it a religious color. What the India Alliance needs to do is to tell the people of India that here is a desperate political party, which has been, in my opinion, a monumental disaster on all fronts, trying to use basically the lessons of Dr. Ambedkar against the evils of the caste system, and go and tell the people of India, especially those who are not belonging to the upper caste, as to how the BJP basically plays, in my opinion, social discrimination and what I call is political marginalization of several sections of India into a political tool. I mean, this is what the India Alliance needs to go and tell the Dalits.
So you're saying that the India Alliance can turn this on its head by suggesting that the BJP is essentially still a very Brahminical Hindu party, that it still is against OBCs and Dalits, and OBCs in particular, because remember, the OBCs are now now the critical section of Indian politics. But Dr. Suraj Yagde, we've heard more than once.
Rajdeep, can I quickly
Yeah,
come
no,
in?
1 minute, ma'am. We've heard more than once Ambedkar's name being mentioned. How do you see this playing out in the context of Dalit OBC, Dalit Bahujan politics, which has become far more important and assertive than ever before in India? Are they concerned about seeing this Sanatan Dharma debate playing out in the manner that it is, according to you?
Rajdeep, it's good to see you too. I think the contemporary political scope that we are kind of placing it within India versus the rest kind of alliance, Modi, BJP versus Congress, we have to understand the crux of the debate has to do with what is termed as Sanatan Dharma. It's not the Dravidian in a sense of the political cadre that has coined or brought out this notion. It is one of the Tamilian but Dalit politician of the VCK party, Tilumavaravan, who has coined the term Sanatan Dharma. In fact, he has written an entire book about a decade or so ago, the title of the book is Uprooting the Sanatan Dharma. And in that, he really takes a look at what it really means to be at the bottom of the society and yet look at the values that Constitution offers us. And in its own sense, Dr. Ambedkar himself, and if you go through writings, but more particularly riddles in Hinduism, which really created much more debate. And ironically, Shiv Sena was somebody that was up against the publication of riddles in Hinduism. And that's where Dr. Ambedkar's genius has come to fore. What Dr. Ambedkar is looking at when it comes to Sanatan, what we mean is an absolute, eternal kind of continuity, unchanging values of a person within a certain religious order. But Dr. Ambedkar goes and, in his own linguistic expertise, what he does is he looks at what it meant to be a person in the Vedic era, as opposed to transcending into an Upanishadic era, where Vedic era was clearly slaughter of animals, cows, and consumption of meat of horses and cows and so forth. The bovine was considered central to that economy. And then in Upanishad immediately, which is in opposition to the rise of Buddha's Dhamma, which takes an ahimsa path. So in many sense, Dr. Ambedkar is looking at the changing aspects of what we have understood. But what did happen when the Orientalists who had come to India literally picked up on the same Brahminical interpretation and argued for the sanctity of what was named eventually as Brahmanism, and then now what we have within the broader canon of Hinduism. Now, in this entire debate, what we essentially miss out is the side of one that is given to Udhayanidhi Stalin, who is a third generation politician, and as opposed to somebody who's coining a term to uproot. And in many sense, A. Raja again becomes a central defector in this, while he was again the person who was butted at the 2G scam, where entire 2G scam was put on his head. And now again, he's quoted. The Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu are no any purer when it comes to the politics of Dalit liberation. It has had a very patronizing attitude because the landed Shudras have always had anxiety with the radical Dalit, especially Ambedkarite and Buddhist revival. And oftentimes when such revival has come, they have often used the cauldron of caste to pin down upon the very Dalit enterprise and constituency. And just look around. I was in Tamil Nadu. I was trying to investigate. And the same happens with their alliance partner in VCK, where it's much more degrading relationships that they have developed, and we can notice that. Now, Sanatana Dharma, as a value proposition, Rajdeep, when it comes to the Dalits, the Shudras, and now also the Adivasis, they were looked as Shudras, they were looked at Chandalas, they were looked up as Vanvasis, were somebody who were part of this system, but yet excluded. Their labor was most important, but we cannot have them. So in many sense, what Professor Kanchaile argued recently was looking at the Dvija, the Varna Dharma, as opposed to Varna Shrama. And Varna Dharma and Varna Shrama really gives duties as opposed to the religious sanctity that we bring. The Dalits, Shudras, and Adivasis have often looked at it as an anathema.
But you see, the question is the political challenge. While you've given us an excellent academic exposition of how you see Sanatan Dharma having evolved, Sumant Raman, the question is politically. As you mentioned, it will cause eventually embarrassment because it can be used, the term Sanatan Dharma is seen as eternal in a way to Hinduism. Therefore, if it is used in the manner and the context in which it is, with the language that it is, it can be interpreted by many as extremely offensive. And that is where where the issue comes. The inability of politicians to recognize how it plays out today.
Rajdeep, that is my point as far as the Congress is concerned. And where I disagree with Sanjay Jha is that I think they missed a trick. You would notice very carefully that Kamal Nath, T.S. Singhdeo, who are all facing elections in 3 months, quickly washed their hands off. They said that they did not agree with this statement categorically. Whereas Mr. K.C. Venugopal sitting in Delhi gives a wishy-washy statement, people have rights to their freedom of expression, we respect their rights for freedom of expression. I mean, what is going on? You know that this is not going to damage the DMK. The only party that's going to get hit is the Congress. And you lose nothing by distancing yourself from these comments. After all, you are in an alliance. You are not part of the same party.
Right.
That party has a viewpoint. We have another viewpoint. We don't agree with Mr. Udhayanidhi's views. The matter would have ended there. And they have not done it in all these days, except the few leaders in Madhya Pradesh and Hindi belt states who have sort of come out a little more vocally against it.
So you think the Congress should have come out more strongly and clearly against the statements, or at least distance themselves more clearly from Udhayanidhi Stalin's statements? But Sanju Verma, it's interesting, the BJP has transformed itself. It's a much more OBCized party today than it ever was. More than 113 of your MPs out of 313 are OBCs. That accounts for about 37%. You have a large number of Dalit and Adivasi MPs. But the feeling is that the party itself has still not completely moved out of a certain sense of Brahminical Hinduism. What if tomorrow the opposition was to say that the BJP's endorsement of Sanatan Dharma is essentially an endorsement, according to the opposition or the Dravida parties, of Brahminical Hinduism? How will you respond? That this is actually the fact that the BJP still sees itself as a Brahminical party?
Okay, I like that question. And I will respond to you with statistics. In the 2019 elections, the BJP's vote share amongst Hindus overall went up from 36 to 44%. Amongst OBCs, it went up from 34 to 44%. Amongst Dalits, it registered the biggest rise from 24% to 34%. Among Adivasis, from 37% to 44%. And among upper caste Hindus, from 47% to 52%. The limited point I'm making is that the biggest vote share percentage rise that the BJP saw in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections came from the Dalit community, and it was not without reason.
Caste, ma'am, is also a reality. Ma'am, I agree with you. Ma'am, just a minute. The political reality you express is right, but the social reality is that we still remain, in large parts of this country, extremely stratified around caste. So is the BJP, according to Udhayanidhi Stalin, he is giving a critique of the caste system. He's calling for a casteless society.
Okay, I heard you. You did not interrupt Mr. Yengde.
Yeah.
At least extend the courtesy to me, if not as much, by half that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Who the hell, and I'm not going to be charitable, who the hell is Udhayanidhi Stalin? A crypto-Christian, a converted Christian, his uncle A. Raja, a baptized Christian, his father N.K. Stalin, who calls himself an atheist, but is also a crypto-Christian. Why should I take lessons on Sanatan Dharma from these, should I say, rice-bag converts? I will not be so
these are very unfortunate words being used, ma'am.
Now let me
you're guilty of using the same hateful, spiteful language you're accusing him of. Avoid it.
May I finish? May I finish?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to ask Rajdeep Sardesai, did you once do a debate where you asked just this simple question to Udhayanidhi Stalin, A. Raja, Priyank Khadge and company and the cabal, including Rahul Gandhi? And just bear with me for 20 seconds, your audience needs to hear this. The number of churches representing different castes and communities within the Christian community, the Methodist Church, the Pentecostal Church, the Independent Charismatic Church, the Church of England, the Brethren Church, the Exclusive Brethren Church, the Orthodox Church, the Lutheran Church, wait a minute, the Roman Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Congregational Church, the Baptist Church, the Society of Friends Church, the URC Church. All these churches represent different castes. If you're a member of the Methodist Church, you will not have your son or daughter marrying into
quickly tell me what's the point you're trying to make. I'm giving you 30 seconds. Tell me the point you're trying to make.
My limited point is, can you stop interrupting for a change. Be
No,
a
please
panelist,
do
not
not.
a panelist.
Please do not use harsh words. But you can
Be a
have your
panelist,
30
not a
seconds.
panelist. My 30 seconds will now be 45 seconds because you have the bad habit of
No, but
interrupting.
sorry, if
My
you-
limited point is this.
Yes.
My limited point is this. Be it Islam, be it Christianity, they all have caste hierarchies. In West Bengal alone, Islam has 35 castes. I just read out the 12 dozen plus castes that exist within the church umbrella. Now my limited last point is this. When the Congress and its alliance partner DMK sit here and give a bhashan to the BJP on the very venerable Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, I am reminded of the fact that on two occasions, 1952 and 1954, if B.R. Ambedkar's entry into the Lok Sabha was thwarted and scuttled and undermined, it was thanks to Pandit Nehru. He finally had to enter the parliament via Rajya Sabha. And Rajdeep, you know this as a seasoned journalist. Do we not remember India's one of the most decorated defense ministers? He was a very tall Dalit leader, Babu Jagjeevan Ram. How many people within Congress remember Babu Jagjeevan Ram, who was a noted Dalit, and his legacy has been completely obliterated?
Okay, you made the point. Dr. Babu Jagjeevan Ram's daughter is a long-standing Congress member at the moment also. Meera Kumar is a long-standing member, and she was put up by the Congress as their presidential candidate. But Dr. Ramu, 1 minute, ma'am. Dr. Ramu Manivanan, you must now hear other voices also, Sanju Verma. Dr. Ramu Manivanan, you wanted to intervene when you were hearing Sanju Verma. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, sir. I would like to say that, there have been some observations that, this whole issue is about Tamil Nadu, and then in the rest of the country, this would have some negative implications. But my question is that in the rest of the country too, you have the Sanatana Dharma. When you interpret it, it's a Hindu way of life. But at the same time, you have the caste dynamics working much more powerfully in the northern states, like in UP, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in these states. In my view, you mark my words, in the next 6 months, this whole debate, this is what is the election main key element for the BJP and the other parties, is that this is going to work as a social justice debate. I mean, this is not going to remain as Udhayanidhi versus the Sanatan Dharma. This is going to emerge as Sanatan Dharma versus the social justice debate.
Okay, that's
we may see that the Congress is not coming openly to acknowledge or to refuse this whole thing, or other parties are shying away from this whole context, the debate. But the real aspect is that the dynamics of this conversation is going to take much more intense ramifications.
So you're saying that this will bring the focus back in a way. I take your point on social justice movement. Suraj Yengde, younger Dalits, how do they see it? How do younger Dalits see the Sanatan Dharma debate, those upwardly mobile, aspirational Dalits who want to move beyond, in a way, the manner in which they were typecast, stratified decades ago?
Rajdeep, it's an interesting question, but I just would like to clear my typo. I said uprooting Sanatan Dharma, referring to the Honorable MP Tiruma. He wrote uprooting Hindutva book,
right.
just for the sake of clarification. As regards your question, Rajdeep, I think the upwardly mobile Dalit discourse, in many sense, is really trying to be agnostic towards such kind of defilements that are being propagated in society. And certainly they have been victims of caste. Now, when we look at the party political decorum, Congress was no less of a Sanatani when it came to practice. It just was not with its fangs, but it was nevertheless in practice. They had their own camp, and they've been having the power to hold Sanatan into its force. So
no, but let me get this clear from you, Dr. Yengde. When you refer to Sanatani, you are referring essentially to Brahminical Hinduism. Is that how you see it?
Absolutely. I mean, there has to be no doubt when we look at the evolution, and unfortunately, the word itself has been corrupted by the same Brahminical forces, which it has then adhered. It's almost a synonymous to what we today see as degradation of women, and the upholding of what we see Varnashrama Dharma, the caste system. Now, nevertheless, that the honorable person who was offering their point to say that the increase of the vote shares and to demonstrate, that doesn't really reflect the reality of what it means. And we really need to go and not really rely on something that we have seen as a telltale.
So you're saying on the ground, Sanatani is still seen, according to you, even among younger aspirational Dalits, in the form of Brahminical Hinduism that is oppressive. But Sanjay Jha, the reality that was also pointed out by Sanju Verma, the truth is that large numbers of Dalit and OBCs have gravitated towards the BJP. The BJP has been much more conscious of embracing, in a way, this rise of a sort of OBC assertiveness in the last 20-25 years. Prime Minister Modi himself is an OBC. So the Congress, in a way, is caught in a bind. Some see it as anti-Hindu, others will say it's not OBC-fied itself enough. Is it in a trap? Is the Congress caught in a trap? Where to go in this Sanatan Dharma debate? How far to push it?
Rajdeep, through the medium of your channel, a very popular program, I would like to convey to all the political leaders of the India Alliance, it's about time you stop sitting on the fence. The BJP gets away speaking in a forked tongue. I mean, I have before me, and I've been a spokesperson before, the horrific atrocities committed on Dalits since 2014. And yet the BJP gets not just the Brahmin votes, but even the Dalit votes. And that is the challenge that the opposition doesn't seem to understand. I will repeat what I said earlier in your program. The BJP could have committed and can and possibly is committing political harakiri. It's for the India Alliance to go to the people of India, because caste hierarchies, social exploitation is not just in Tamil Nadu, it's happening all over the country. I'm a Brahmin from Bihar. I've grown up there in my early years, and I've heard horrific stories of upper caste dominance and how the lower caste suffered.
So you're saying the Sanatan Dharma debate, as was said by the professor, could become about Hindutva versus social justice in a way. I will, Sanju Verma, I will give you now 30 seconds to the clock, because otherwise you will say that I was unfair to you. I want to ask you very squarely, is this in a way the BJP trying in some way to change the narrative, to change the goalpost? Instead of having the debate, let's say, on Berozgari, on Garibi, on the issues that many believe should be discussed, social infrastructure, health, education, the debate is being swung towards an issue which the BJP believes is its pitch, which is religion.
Let's be very clear. I'm happy to debate on Berozgari, on the fact that India under the aegis of Narendra Modi has become the world's 5th largest economy in terms of nominal GDP, overtaking UK at $3.75 trillion. I'm happy to debate with you that Narendra Modi runs the world's largest financial inclusion scheme called the Jan Dhan Yojana, where 67% of the beneficiaries are Dalits. I'm happy to have a debate with you on the fact that the Narendra Modi government runs the world's largest health insurance scheme called the Ayushman Bharat Yojana, where 63% of the beneficiaries are Dalits. I'm happy to have a debate with you on the fact that the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi Yojana, another farmer inclusion scheme run by the Modi government, has 59% of the beneficiaries as Dalits. I'm happy to have a debate with you on the Mudra Yojana, the world's largest self-employment scheme run by the highly successful Modi government, where 76%, you got that right, 76% of the beneficiaries are Dalits. We do not simply talk, we walk the talk when it comes to Dalit empowerment.
That, Sumant Raman, is an interesting point which is being made by Sanju Verma there, that, is it, we may look at it as stereotypical Hindutva versus, 1 minute ma'am, no, 1 minute now, Hindutva versus social justice. The reality on the ground is that this is a changing political environment where every party, as I said, is reaching out now to more and more OBC groups. There's already talk that next week's special session of Parliament could see increased reservations for the lower OBCs. Do you believe that this debate can be positioned as Hindutva versus social justice, as Sanjay Jha is attempting to suggest, or Professor is?
I don't think so, Rajdeep, because I don't see the BJP of today being identified as particularly a Brahminical party. Yes, there are still Brahminical elements within the party, but whether it is Mr. Modi himself at the top, wielding enormous clout, and he is not a part of the elite. He comes from the OBC community, so that itself knocks a big hole in the saying that we will project BJP as a Brahminical party. Now the point really is, you'll recall, Rajdeep, during the Mandal agitation, the BJP then made Mandir. They actually brought in religion to trump the caste angle, as it were, and Mandir eventually prevailed over the the Mandal factor at the hustings. Now here is Sanjay Jha. What he is basically suggesting is to try to reverse that, and try to bring back caste differences to sort of to the fore, and push these religious polarization that the BJP has very successfully done, by the way, over the last so many years, to push it to the background. The point is, painting the BJP as a Brahmin party when it has an OBC head who basically calls almost all the shots is not going to wash. And the whole problem for the Congress is it is now stuck in no man's land. Earlier, they did take a good stance of at least going temple hopping, saying that, look, we are not anti
Rajdeep, can I quickly come in?
No, ma'am.
Sanatan Dharma as it is perceived in the Hindi belt. And mind you, Rajdeep, the battle for the Congress is predominantly going to be in those 4 or 5 or 6 Hindi belt states. So what are they looking at about what happens in Tamil Nadu or what happens in Andhra Pradesh?
Sanjay Jha, quickly respond.
What happens in the 4 or 5 Hindi belt states?
Sanjay Jha, quick response from you.
Yeah, Rajdeep, let me tell my dear friend Sumant that whether it's caste or religion, these dynamics are very fluid. We all know that Mandir and the Mandal agitation completely transformed the politics of this country, particularly in the northern part of India. So I think the truth is that if the BJP today is making the Sanatan Dharma issue into a national issue, largely focusing on the Hindutva definition of it, then there will be a pushback. I mean, that you will expect from a political party like the Congress and the other members of the India Alliance. I do believe it makes the competitive field more fluid, and the India Alliance actually should be able to corner Mr. Modi instead of going on the defensive.
Dr. Suraj Yengde, your response in terms of should we, in a way, now be able to rise? Is it possible that this debate can be less polarized, less fractious? Or do you believe that's the nature, that there is still a lot of anger in the way the caste system is seen as inherently oppressive? So therefore, this debate will by its very nature be polarizing.
Rajdeep, to piggyback on Suman and Sanjay's pointers, the reference point to the Mandal versus Kamandal, and the idea of whole Mandal debate was within the Hindi heartland and also rest of India of the middle Shudras and the lower Shudras who took upon the power. And now we see the same Shudras genuflecting to the power structures of the Brahminic Hinduism that we see. Lalu Prasad Yadav visits Siddhivinayak temple and does all kinds of things. Akhilesh Yadav just bows to some Brahmin man wearing certain kind of clothes. So what we see, that kind of subservience and subordination within the dynamics of the Hindutva, as opposed to atheism and rationalism that they at least propose or espouse, seems to be falling apart. And so what we saw, Mandal, Kamandal here itself means the Mandal and Kamandal like almost walking through down the same street. However, what we notice in today's context when it comes to caste as well as the dimensions of today when it comes to the neoliberal economy is that anger of caste is increasing at such a polarized level that I fear the notion of social justice will merely be reduced to be identifying as vis-a-vis caste, but not social justice, which means not just caste, but bringing justice to various other factors that include this, that again is not guaranteed in the Brahminical Hinduism model that we currently have, and the constitution very strictly abhors and prohibits.
Dr. Manivanan, taking off from that, since Udhayanidhi Stalin triggered off this debate, let's try and end somewhere with Udhayanidhi Stalin. Is this a sense that the Dravida movement has had numerous achievements, no doubt about it, in terms of pushing for social welfareism, for example. But the truth of the matter is, like in many other states, caste is still very strong in Tamil Nadu. I just had a story earlier this week of a group of young students who refused to eat food cooked for the midday meal because the cook was a Dalit. So, while we talk about the Dravida movement sort of trying to reform a Hindu society, the truth of the matter is caste is extremely resilient. What have the Udhayanidhi Stalins of the world really done to transform that?
Yeah, can I ask one question? Like, when you say that the children in Tamil Nadu refuse to eat because it's been cooked by the caste, other caste people, but, is it Tamil Nadu is responsible for that, or the caste system in India is
No, I'm saying
responsible
it's
for
all.
that?
I'm saying it's all over.
That's my
But the
first
fact
question.
is that the Dravida model also cannot
No,
claim to
even
have
in Dravidian-
completely achieved what it set out to do: create a casteless society.
Like, we are talking about abolition of the caste for several thousands of years and several hundreds of years, actually. Like, we have had Phule, Jyotibai Phule, we have had Dr. Ambedkar, Periyar, and several Dravidian leaders. It's still a long way struggle. It is not one-stop solution. Now, I want also to refer to, make a small brief mention. In Tamil Nadu, in the last few days, like, women have, particularly the Dalit women, have been appointed as the priests in temples and by the government of Tamil Nadu. This is not to defend the government or the Dravidian movement, but such a thing can happen in the state of Tamil Nadu. So this is why we are saying this is not just an isolated Tamil Nadu problem, but Tamil Nadu happens to articulate this for a very, very long time along with the other states. But in other states, it has always been drowned by the voices of the dominant caste and the dominant political system. But in Tamil Nadu, that the another Dravidian narrative has taken over. So, like, this is not to say that the BJP or the Congress, but this is a national problem, but where the voice rises is you'll have to see it in the national context, and also the entire the debate has to be seen in terms of, like, not about the against the Brahminical community or the OBC's power or the Dalit status, but it has to be seen in context of spreading the distribution of justice and taking the justice further and forward. If you look at this debate in that context, I certainly, but in terms of political contest and competition, there will always be very aggressive narratives. But what I see in this situation is that this is an election year, and this is like, even if the Congress wants to avoid this debate, there is no way that BJP will let this debate slip out of its hand.
Okay.
But it has to be just seen in a way as to be beyond the Congress. There are parties like Rashtriya Janata Dal and Samajwadi Party, and then the Bahujan Samaj, and all these parties have to address this narrative. And this
Okay,
is why
so
I think, like,
it's
this
a-
debate is like, even whether at one time it was seen as like in India, Hindutva versus the other religions. But inside now, the Sanatan Dharma, it's inside the Hinduism. This debate has to be kind of take its logical
Okay,
course.
I'm getting
And,
two more.
I certainly-
I'm getting two more fingers. One Sumant Raman and then Sanju Verma. Don't worry, be patient. I will come to you first, Sumant Raman.
Yeah, Rajdeep, look, the objective of the Dravidian movement to call it caste, eradication of caste, is the biggest hoax that anybody can play. The objective was to remove the Brahmin domination and replace it with the domination of 4 or 5 or 6 landed, politically entrenched, powerful communities which had a vote bank. And that has been done very successfully, which is why you will find that the Dalits are still oppressed. There is still a two-tumbler system, and the Brahmins are nowhere in Tamil Nadu. They are hardly 2.5–3%. They are completely disappeared from the villages, and yet you have separate burial grounds. You have separate, there are roads through which the funeral procession of Dalits are not allowed to pass. There is casteism in every breath in Tamil Nadu. It is just that those who are indulging in this caste oppression are different. And the Brahmins, who are 2.5–3% in Tamil Nadu, have become a convenient whipping boy to continue to propagate the dominance of these intermediate communities. Take the Justice Party, which was the precursor of the DK. Almost all of those founders, many of those founders, were educated in Oxford and Cambridge, where they are all poverty-stricken people. They were dominant landed communities from the intermediate communities, and that is the group. Recently, there was human feces mixed in a water tank in a village in Tamil Nadu. Did
May I come
anybody
in,
from the
Rajdeep?
DMK go out there, condemn the incident unequivocally, and take stern action?
Yes, but having said that, in the context of when I look at South India and North India, there are still strong progressive elements that have also come as a result of the social revolution that came about in Tamil Nadu. And in North India, by contrast, the political revolution, some would say, has preceded the social revolution. But Sanju Verma, you are getting impatient. It's interesting, the Prime Minister locating this as a cultural debate. He says Sanatan culture is all about Lord Ram's principles. Sanatan Dharma made Ravidas and Kabir Das saints. But there are, as I said, those who will also see it from the prism of, in a way, protecting certain old ways of in which Hinduism functioned, the darker side of Hinduism. Is there a recognition of that or not?
Okay. I think, Rajdeep, I will listen to you on a lecture on the darker side of Hinduism the day you can give me a lecture on the darker side of Islam and the darker side of Christianity.
Today's
But
debate
either
is on
way-
Sanatan Dharma, man.
Yes, so now let me finish. You did not interrupt the other speakers. Please don't stick to your
Yes.
bad habit of going on poking and needling the BJP and then saying we are impatient.
Yes.
But thank you for your certificate, which is not needed. Now let me tell you one thing. I just want also Suraj Yengre to listen to this because he's a scholar and he will appreciate this. Just before the Mahabharata was about to begin, and I'll take 20 seconds to say this. In the Bhagavad Gita, when Lord Krishna gives that famous sermon to Arjuna, because Arjuna is vacillating and not sure whether he wants to fight against his cousins, the Kauravas. What does Krishna say to Arjuna? And this is the essence of Sanatan Dharma, because the word Sanatan it has its genesis in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me finish in 20 seconds. Don't get impatient now, Rajdeep. Lord Krishna says, Katura Varnam Maya Srishtam. Katura Varnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. Which basically means Krishna is telling Arjuna, the 4 Varnas are my creation based on Guna as in ability and Karma as in action. And then you will find in the abridged version of the Bhagavad Gita, there's a footnote which says that the Varna system, which is being wrongly criticized and attacked in the current day, is a system based purely on ability and action and not by birth. And that is why all the characters in Mahabharata were named and referred to by their actions and abilities, not by their birth. And you do not know the surname of any character in Mahabharata because they did not believe in the caste system. Do you know the surname of Arjuna?
Ma'am,
Do you know the surname
ma'am, the
of
fact is, ma'am,
Do you know
I
the
must,
surname
producer,
of Bhishma?
I must, you made, the fact is the reality, we are reflecting reality on the ground. I think Dr. Suraj Yengde was reflecting the reality on the ground. The fact is, the reality on the ground is that caste has been extremely resilient in this society in terms of discriminating between people even today. Am I correct, Dr. Yengde? Do you see, just as Sanatan Dharma is seen as eternal and, is caste also for you carved in stone, that it simply cast in stone, that it simply cannot change?
I mean, Rajdeep, it baffles me and it really concerns me to hear people justify caste. I mean, there's absolutely no reason for any despicable system to thrive amongst us, and yet we offer more often liturgical evidences and citations for its sanctity. And this is the tragedy. What does Rajdeep has to do with Rajdeep Sardesai? What does Suraj has to do with Suraj Yengde or Sanju Verma as Sanju Verma, Sanjay Jha as Sanjay Jha? It is the immanence of caste and also eminence, which is an internal structure that is functioning here. And I would like to not blackball the Dravidian movement here, because what we're seeing is, yes, certainly the caste hierarchies have been penetrated minus Brahmins, because Brahmin worked as a uniting factor. Nevertheless, they are arguing, Udhayanidhi's statement is to abolish that. And we have to understand, Sanatan Dharma as a political coinage made by Tiruma Valavalan, as opposed to the Sanatanis of Sanatan Dharma who would like to maintain a certain religious superiority and who have been the people who identify themselves as Sanatanis, have always, when we have seen, adduced to a certain orthodox, very rigid way of living a life.
Okay.
So when the Dravidian parties in Tamil Nadu are arguing against Sanatan Dharma, though they belong to the intermediary or dominant landed aristocracy, we have to understand that they would like to abolish caste and not uphold. And that would still mean, and that's the challenge, how will they decaste themselves and how will they burn the casteism that is grown within their vein? Because they are not immune to caste. While pointing out the fingers at the Brahmin as an individual actor, as an Ubermensch, as somebody that needs to be receiving a certain kind of glory, the DK has created a politics, and the great Periyar, comes across as somebody who is not just concerned with Brahmin as such, but he's also concerned with caste existing within the hierarchy. And that's why his critique of Krishna is deep. His critique of...
It's fascinating listening to you, Dr. Yengde, because it is important to have these alternate narratives. And I think that is what this debate reflects, that the debate is not black and white. It's far more complex. Politicians tend to reduce debates to black and white and thereby polarize us. These are debates which are multi-layered, that work at different levels. Maybe the language and the context perhaps could have been explained far better and thereby perhaps made sure that it became less polarizing. But I appreciate all my panelists joining us today. This has been the round table on an issue which perhaps will continue to rumble right through this election season. This was the Political Rumble. Thanks very much for joining us here on it. Goodbye. Good night. Jai Hind. Namaskar. के हमले के बाद भी कुछ लोग मूक दर्शक बन के बैठे रहे। सोनिया गांधी, मनमोहन सिंह जी की सरकार मौन अवस्था में थी, मूक दर्शक थे, कोई कदम नहीं उठा पाए थे। नेहरू जी के दिए जख्म देश भूल नहीं पाया। ये 370-35 से और कश्मीर को इस हालत में छोड़ना, 40,000 लोगों की वहां पे हत्याएं होना, इसकी कांग्रेस की देन है। ये जख्म कांग्रेस के दिए, उससे मुक्ति दिलाने का काम, मरहम लगाने का काम नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार ने किया। आतंकवादी घटनाओं में कमी आई, और यही नहीं, अगर रिकॉर्ड आतंकवादियों को मुठभेड़ में मारा गया तो पिछले 9 वर्षों में मारा गया है। लेकिन जो अभी कश्मीर में घटा दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण भी है, दुखद भी है। इसका बदला भी लिया जाएगा, कड़ा जवाब भी दिया जाएगा।
यह अपमान देश सहन नहीं करेगा, और किसी के कहने से सनातन ना तो कहीं से कमजोर पड़ सकता है और ना उसे कोई कमजोर कर सकता है। ये सनातन जो है आदि है, वर्तमान है और भविष्य है।
पूरा ये जो विपक्ष का अलायंस हुआ है, इसका जो असली मकसद है ये भारत का हिंदुत्व को वीक करना और सनातन का खिलाफ।
Tesla is now preparing for its big drive into India. The Elon Musk-owned electric vehicles company had sourced $1 billion worth of components last year and also targeting a figure of $1.9 billion this year. Revealing this, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal added that the company was interested in coming to India. Tesla has been in talks with various ministries for an entry into the nation. The recent reports also suggest that the Musk-owned Starlink may also be now allowed to start services in India.
Already last year, bought $1 billion of components from, I think, all of you sitting here. I have the list of companies who supplied to Tesla. This year, their target is nearly 1.7 or $1.9 billion. Yesterday, I had a conversation with some of the other auto industry participants, and they also indicated that they have interest in coming to India.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
शिवराज जी, ये जो सनातन को लेकर एक बहस छिड़ गई, पहले तो मैं आपसे समझना चाहती हूँ कि आपके अनुसार सनातन क्या है?
जिसका ना आदि है ना अंत है, जो पहले भी था, आज भी है और कल भी रहेगा, वो है सनातन। और आप देखिए, शक आए, हूण आए, कुषाण आए, मुगल आए, वर्षों तक मुगलों ने भी राज किया, लेकिन सनातन कभी समाप्त नहीं कर पाए। वो सनातन है क्या? एकम सद विप्रा बहुधा वदंती, सनातन है। सत्य एक है, विद्वान अलग अलग तरीके से कहते हैं, इसलिए सबका आदर करो। आत्मवत सर्वभूतेषु, मतलब अपने जैसा सबको मानो। सिया राम मैं सब जग जानी, ये सनातन है। सत्यमेव जयते सनातन है। जियो और जीने दो सनातन है। धर्म की जय हो मतलब अच्छाइयों की जय हो, अधर्म का नाश हो मतलब बुराइयां समाप्त हो, और प्राणियों में सद्भावना हो। केवल मनुष्य मात्र में नहीं, प्राणियों में भी सद्भावना हो, ये सनातन है। और केवल अपना नहीं, विश्व का कल्याण हो, ये सनातन है। अयम निजम परा बेत्ति गणना लघु चेत साम, उदार चरिता नाम तू वसुदैव कुटुंबकम। ये मेरा है, ये तेरा है। ये सोच छोटे दिल वालों का होता है। जो विशाल हृदय के होते हैं वो तो कहते हैं सारी दुनिया ही एक परिवार है। ये सनातन है। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सनातन है। सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सनातन है। सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु सनातन है। माँ कश्चित् दुख भाग भवेत् सनातन है। सब सुखी हो, सब निरोग हो, सबका मंगल हो, सबका कल्याण हो, ये सनातन है। इस सनातन को कोई समाप्त नहीं कर सकता। लेकिन मैडम सोनिया गांधी से मैं सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं, राहुल जी से मैं सवाल पूछना चाहता हूं। ये तुम्हारा इंडी गठबंधन सनातन पे हमले कर रहा है, सनातन को खत्म करने की कोशिश कर रहा है। आपका इस पे क्या कहना है? क्या आप सनातन के विरोधी हो? क्या आप सनातन को समाप्त करोगे? या फिर वो जिन्होंने सनातन को समाप्त करने की डेंगू और मलेरिया जैसी तुलना करें? शर्म आनी चाहिए इस गठबंधन को और मैडम सोनिया गांधी को भी। आज तक चुप बैठे हैं। कौन सनातन समाप्त कर सकता है हिंदुस्तान की धरती से? कई आए और चले गए। ये सनातन सदैव था, है और हमेशा रहेगा। और एक बात और मैं आज तक के इस मन से कह रहा हूं, भौतिकता की अग्नि में दग्ध विश्व मानवता को शाश्वत शांति के पथ का दिग्दर्शन अगर कोई कराएगा तो केवल सनातन कराएगा। सनातन, इसको कोई समाप्त नहीं कर सकता।
आज का मौसम। दिल्ली अधिकतम 36 और न्यूनतम 26 डिग्रीज। मुंबई अधिकतम 31 और न्यूनतम 25 डिग्रीज। कोलकाता अधिकतम 31 और न्यूनतम 25 डिग्रीज। बेंगलुरु अधिकतम 23 और न्यूनतम 21 डिग्रीज। चेन्नई अधिकतम 34 और न्यूनतम 26 डिग्रीज। हैदराबाद अधिकतम 30 और न्यूनतम 22 डिग्रीज।
Powered by Volkswagen. Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com. हर फैमिली होगी इंश्योर्ड।
6-year-old Kabir salutes his father, Colonel Manpreet Singh's mortal remains. The entire world saw Colonel Munindranath Rai's daughter pay her respects to her fallen father. From Ganga to Tamanna, India's daughters paid respects to their fallen father. But how long will Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror bleed India? How can India impose costs on terror state Pakistan? And that's our top focus on India First.
In the past, Indian soldiers have carried out a surgical strike post that Uri terror attack. Post Pulwama, Balakot airstrikes were carried out. Article 370 has been defanged, but Pakistan's state-sponsored radical Islamist terror continues to bleed India at a time when Pakistan is virtually being torn apart. Pakistan Army has retreated from several pockets along the AFPAC border, especially in Chitral. There is major trouble that Pakistan is facing in Chitral. There is trouble in Gilgit and Baltistan in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. That state sponsor of terror, Pakistan, is virtually bankrupt, and yet radical Islamic terror continues to bleed India. Is it then time to neutralize that trinity of terror? Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, that Maulana of terror Masood Azhar, and Daud Ibrahim Kaskar, the main accused in the 1993 Mumbai blast, living in Karachi, Pakistan. And of course, equally important, their masters, their handlers at Appara, at Pakistan ISI headquarters. What are India's genuine options? We debate. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started with the headlines at 10. Nation bids farewell to our brave hearts. Colonel Manpreet and Major Ashish cremated with full military honours. Anantnag encounter continues for the third